Hello and welcome to Unsourced Wall. My name is Elvis, and as always, I am your host. Okay, so it seems like we're going to have another review-packed episode. Not only do we have a bunch of comic reviews, but we also have a whole bunch of TV reviews, because not only did we have yet another episode of Doom Patrol, but also 2 full seasons dropping this week as well, with The Tick Season 2 and The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina Season 2. I'll be doing full reviews for each, but we'll get to that when it comes up. First things first, let's head into some news topics with some movie news. To begin with, let's start with the Joker trailer. It looks okay. I mean, it doesn't look bad, but honestly, I feel like the only teaser they could have given us could have been that one 10-second makeup reveal clip, and that would have been enough. Like, the facial and body movements, the music, and the editing were really damn tight in that teaser clip. Showing more could not have topped it in any way, and it really kind of didn't. All this new trailer shows is that it's kind of a standard movie. Like, it's not doing anything really interesting outside of being about the Joker. It looks like a typical period piece and a typical character piece, with all the grounding and drama that follows that. Which is okay, but it's just that's all it ever looks like. Still, it could be an entertaining watch, but it just looks like nothing special or something that you have to go out and see. Anyway, fingers crossed for that. Next up, we have a lot of Suicide Squad 2 news, with the first being that Deadshot won't actually be in that movie, and that Idris Elba will be playing an entirely new character, which is cool. Deadshot was one of the few characters in the first one that had a complete little story arc. We didn't need to see any more of him, so I'm putting my hat in that he'll play Catman. Everyone is boringly guessing Bronze Tiger or Red Lion, but seriously, fuck that. Catman all the way. We also have confirmed that Viola Davis will return as Amanda Waller, which is awesome. Hopefully less gotta call Batman for help this time and more confident. She was a great casting choice, but she was given kind of fuck all to do in the first one, and it was a real disappointment. We also have that Joel Kinnaman will return as Rick Flag Jr. too. I don't know, I mean, yay if it brings back more Katana, because she was also short-thrifted in that first one and she deserves a lot more. One last interesting piece about Suicide Squad 2 this week is that there are rumors that they plan on casting a strong alien femme fatale for the movie. And I feel like the only option would be Duchess. People are talking about Maxima or whatever, but no, it has to be Duchess, and then you can set up the inevitable New Gods movie, hopefully no longer directed by Ava DuVernay. Please God, please. Fingers crossed. I hope this turns out good. I have a lot of faith in this one. Next up, we have The New Mutants, which is still on Disney's release slate for this summer. So I hope we get a new trailer or something soon, because it seems like there's no hope for the darker horror reshoots to ever happen at this point. But the original cut was finished, and it sounded like it was good, which is funny when you remember all these reports about how the reshot movie was a disaster, because it turns out that it never existed. I still have hope for this movie, and I can't wait to see it someday. I really hope that it turns out to be good and that we finally get to the end of this long, drawn out, and kind of cruel saga. Alright, so this is actually breaking news. I wasn't really going to even talk about this because there's nothing about this topic that really interested me at all. But then the more I thought about it, the more I realized that there was a lot of things about it that just bugged the hell out of me. And that is this new trailer for Hellboy, which is called the R-rated sizzle trailer. And it's only about how rated R this movie is. That's the entire trailer. Just a lot of clips with banners saying rated R for extreme bloody violence and gore and lewd humor. It's like, what the hell? It's so desperate. It's so try hard, and it's just ridiculous. It's so awfully lame. Like, they really don't have any confidence in this movie at all, and they're really trying to sell it hard as being the movie isn't your grandfather's Hellboy. And it's like, who the fuck gives a shit? But there's also a lot of other little nagging things, like, ooh, look, see, we have Lobster Johnson. Don't you think the comic fans love this now? Yeah, because Lobster Johnson's in it, I'm gonna run out and see a movie that looks like complete trash. They even have Hellboy run around and scream, I love you, Lobster Johnson, which would have been a really cool, funny little sweet line if this was a better movie, and it doesn't look like it's going to be a better movie, so it just comes off as cringy, and again, really pandering. And then I realized that Thomas Hayden Church was cast as Lobster Johnson. I actually talked about that a couple weeks ago, and it is just a waste of him. The costume looks like they just got it out some sort of party city. It just looks ill-fitting. He's quipping. He says Guten Tag after killing a German guy, and that's not Lobster Johnson. Maybe it's a movie. Maybe that's it. Maybe they're just watching a movie about Lobster Johnson, and it's a really cheesy, corny movie. But I don't think so, because the rest of the movie and the rest of the trailer is all this corny cheesiness that is just so overbearing and overwhelming, and it looks ridiculously stupid. and it's a shame. And I can't believe that they're pulling so many elements from the comics that are really cool and really awesome, and they're just shoving them all in and wasting them all in this one load because they know they won't have another shot because this one is just too bad to have a sequel to. Or at least I hope so. Anyway, fingers crossed that against all odds it turns out to be an amazing movie. And there we go. Moving on to TV news, first off we have Titans. It seems that the actor who played Jason Todd in the first season has been upgraded to season regular for season 2. That's exciting. I think he did a great job, and it'd be fun to see him and his destined character arc play off against the more dangerous stakes they seem to want to set up for this next season. I'm not holding my breath though. Given how the show continually changes things on the fly, he could be cut out of the show by the time it actually airs. But fingers crossed, and I thought he was really fun. Next up we have Gotham. We finally have the first official promo look of the Joker's final design for the series finale. It actually leaked like a month or so ago, but I'm glad I can finally talk about it. I love the design. It's just so haggard and badly aged. It just works. It's a unique take on the Joker's design without losing much of anything. He still looks manic and ridiculous, but now feels so deplorable and just honestly disgustingly real. Like, of course, the Joker would not age well. Even without the chemical bath being an explanation for all this, I still would believe that the Joker would be a balding, fat old man. So yeah, I know, it's great. It's fun. A lot of people have been hating on it, calling it lazy and no effort, which is kind of the exact opposite. They released a teaser clip for the finale with it too, which is also really great. Little nods like the Wayne Corp logo, 10 years from now looking like the 70s Warner Brothers logo, and Cameron Monaghan finally perfecting the Joker laugh he's been doing for the past 4 to 5 years. It just works, and I can't wait to see the series finale. It's been a long time coming, and I really hope it sticks a landing. Lastly, in comic news, we only have one real thing, which is that they've announced Archie vs. Predator 2. But they've made the stupid mistake of putting artist Robert Hack on the book, which if you followed his other Archie works like the Sabrina horror comic, then you know he's a dumb choice for this book. The appeal of the first miniseries was the contrast, colorful and fun Archie world designs, but people are being killed in gory, gruesome ways. Putting a regular horror artist on it who has a very distinct and very sort of macabre aesthetic misses the point entirely. It just plays it too straight. It's too obvious. It doesn't have any sort of fun to it that you would need to balance each other off. It just, like, who cares? It just sounds so fucking boring. So I'm giving this one a pass. Alright, so we head on into what I read this week. First things first, let's start off with The Immortal Hulk number 16. I think it's safe to say that I am 100% back on board with this series. There is just something about it that really speaks to me as a Hulk fan that has been so desperately wanting a definitive run for this generation. And, for better and worse, that has been this. It's not perfect, but it still hits that sweet spot that completes the Hulk. And this issue does it better than most. From the narration by Rick Jones in his memoir, called Sidekick for some reason. I mean, come on, Rick. To the final page, it's a love letter. It's a love letter to everything about the Hulk. Rick Jones' narration just exudes everything that worked and was right and was awesome about him as a character and his role and dynamic with the Hulk. I haven't seen anything pinpointed as great as that since Hulk Grey by Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale. Rick Jones, he has meaning, he has importance, he has weight, and I am so glad that Ewing is able to hit the nail on the head with that. And yet, it's still just not only that. Hell, we're also getting Grey Hulk shenanigans. A certain kind of Grey Hulk, but nonetheless, still, fucking Grey Hulk, that's amazing. In retrospect, it should have been obvious. This run has been about going back to basics. We would have gone the OG back sooner or later. And given what's being set up with Rick Jones, Grey is the best choice to counteract him with. I'm also still just shocked that we're getting Red She-Harpy too. This run is everything I wanted since I was 8 years old and learning about the Hulk and all the comics that came before. And I'm grateful. I really am. 2 thumbs up. Next up, we have Lodger number 4, which I had no idea was the penultimate issue for this series. And that makes me kind of sadder than when I was reading it, because this was a fantastic issue. It's kind of amazing. It's as good as anything the Laphams have ever done. It has that incredible, dark, depressing, and hilarious tone to it. It balances the line of cynical drudgery and fuck yeah perfectly. My only real complaint was that there are things I wished were more fleshed out. But I figured when reading it that it would be eventually in a future issue. So there was this huge come down when I saw the to be concluded at the final page. This has been such a rich and interesting storyline and premise. But only 5 issues? It's kind of a shame. But Aside from the crappy, terrible first issue, it's been nothing but immaculate left hand skill, and I love it. I hope that even if the final issue can't wrap up things nicely, that it'll hit the landing with a confident thud, just like Young Liars did. 2 thumbs up. Alright, moving on to The Green Lantern number 6, which was a decent issue. Not as much of a rolling thunder as the previous 3 or so issues, but Sharp's art is still great, and the mood and tenacity of the story shines as bright as ever. It breathes such a scope of spacefaring DC, with a lot of bold moves, and it knows exactly where and how it wants to get there. While this issue wasn't as sort of amazing and exciting as the other issues so far, it still has such esteem for the Green Lantern mythology as a whole, but also other cosmic DC stuff, and it just feels like you're reading something that is not beholden to anything, but knows exactly how respectful it should be to other things as well, which is great, and it's nice, and it just feels so comfortable, and I can't wait for the next issue because it sets up something that should be a hell of a kick as well. 2 thumbs up. And lastly, we have Young Justice number 4. Remember when people were excited about this team returning? I don't know why, because this is just insanely boring and underwhelming. And ooh, look, the Young Justice team are all back together and they hugged. That makes the last 4 issues completely worthwhile and not the most lackluster piece of shit. 2 thumbs down. I just can't deal with this series anymore. And so we move on to review section, or what I watched this week. Again, no limit on spoilers. If you haven't seen any of this stuff, then please go out and do so, and then come back here and let's share some thoughts. First things first, we have Doom Patrol, Season 1, Episode 8, Danny Patrol. And well, this was maybe the first less than amazing episode, which when you put it like that, doesn't really sound all that bad. And it isn't. There's still a lot of great bits to this episode, but that's kind of my point. It's just kind of those bits. With the other episodes of this season so far, there was this almost overwhelming cohesiveness to each installment that made everything feel so flowing and direct. There are some lulls in this one, a bit of a slow beat or two, and well, it's really only noticeable because of the higher bar this show has been working with, that it's been building up. So it's a bit of a case of luxuries, better than some of the other stuff we'll get to this week for sure. Of the high points, it would be obvious to start with how deftly the show tries to handle introducing Danny to Street. In doing so, it handles an equal measure of interpreters for Danny and the interactive environment that he is. It would be unfair to say that maybe it feels like it struggles, because how else could you ever pull off a character like this? That it even works a little bit is kind of a miracle. You get a good sense of Danny's personality, and I really hope that they show up again so that we can see more of that develop. The only other character beats we really get to zero in on this week are Larry and Jane. Larry is the most highlighted, with this wonderful musical interlude that encircles the core tone of the episode. Matt Bomer and Matthew Zuck make great use of it, and give it a lively but depressing edge. It's beautiful stuff. Jane, her beats are mostly played for comedy, and it's okay. It leads to some good gags, but nothing all that interesting. Jane has been more interesting and more entertaining in other episodes than this. It leads directly into next week's episode, so hopefully we can see if they make more of it, but whatever, it could have been more. It could have been a lot more entertaining, a little bit more tied together, and it could have been a lot more impactful, but the parts that are, sell it, and they are still part of the gold standard of this show. I'm still loving this series, and I still love the brazen attitude to doing it as much as it can. 1 thumb up, 1 thumb middle. Okay, so next up we have The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, Season 2. Like pulling off a band-aid, I binged through this newly dropped season of Sabrina, just to get it over with. And oh boy, was that a mistake. As many might not know, I wasn't a fan at all of the first season. The only good things I could say about it were just one brief entertaining sequence in a random episode, and that the completely garbage story and episode structures slowly started to get better as the season went along. And well, I pretty much can only say the same things about this season. The episode structure is fine, and there's still only one small beat that's really fun and entertaining. The rest of these 9 episodes are just total trash. Like, it's even somehow worse than the first season, because at least at that one, when the pacing and structure got better, so did the enjoyment factor and the foundational plots of those episodes. In this one, it just feels like they don't give a shit. We get such incredibly aggravating, annoying, and pointless plots and narrative directions. Stuff like removing the one little thing that made Harvey almost interesting and then replacing it with another romance, despite the writing and acting for Harvey making him a charisma void. Or really confusing and conflicting themes and messages concerning whatever the satanic cult is meant to symbolize and whatever sympathy we're meant to have for them and for the people who are self-proclaimed evil bastards. Like angels are murderous Mormons. Sabrina wears a crown of thorns. And at one point, they pretty much say, make Satanism great again by subjugating the female witches. Because that's what really stings about selling your soul to the devil for power and doing all sorts of heinous rituals. The misogyny. It's just a mess. A boring, overwrought, melodramatic mess. The one good bit I talked about, well, let's get into that, because it really is damn good. There is one character in season 1 called Susie, who comes out as Theo in this season. And let me tell you, Theo is the only damn character this season that pulled their own weight. There's genuine emotional beats, some good acting, and Theo is actually proactive about the plot at hand. In one episode, there's a pod person storyline, and Theo is the only one who has enough sense to save the day. He just goes out and destroys and kills every last pod person, and it is so damn good. But it's also immediately ruined because they do the pod person scream from the Sutherland movie, and Jesus Christ, I hate Aguirre Sacasa so much. Still, it's a good scene. And it made me laugh at the end of the season when Sabrina says her friends saved the world. Because Harvey, Roz, they're nothing. Theo saved the world. Enough said. This season also ends up wrapping up the main myth arc for the series in a very laughable, anticlimactic way. At the end of the season, it all really is over. But they still decided to leave another season hook with the stupidest hook you could think of. Like the scene before, they go, doing this would destroy the world. And then the scene after that is them going, let's do it anyway. With every real plot thread being over, does anyone really care? I don't. I really don't. 2 thumbs down. But still, 2 thumbs up to Theo. Badass. Alright, so we head on into my final review this week, which is for The Tick Season 2, which was a pretty damn great season. It doesn't have that same unique verve as the first half of the first season, but it's a more confident, practiced, and assured show. The acting, writing, and storylines go in some pretty amazing and hilarious places. One character arc in particular gets such great development and goes in these fantastically darkly humorous areas. I did not expect it, but each time it went back to it, I started laughing my ass off. It was so good, and it edged this pure amount of bleakness. That's how you know that Edlund still has such a hand in this series, because that bleakness. There's some bleak jokes in here that are absolutely gut-busting, but they have this darkness to them they sometimes don't see in this show or this season, which is a little bit more goofier than the previous season. Arthur, however, was perhaps the most recognizable he's been in this batch of episodes, because they really nailed his classic character perfectly. He's more competent, and that makes his fumbles and neurotic nature that much more enjoyable. One thing I found weird was how the villainous plot this season felt like they really wanted to continue the terrorist story, but couldn't. Maybe it's just that the showrunning was that good that it felt seamless in that way, but still, there's something odd about this season being about a villain who wants to take back the Earth from superheroes, but is also a villain that everyone thought was dead and that tricked the world thinking that they were dead. So again, it feels like they really wanted to continue the terror, but maybe they couldn't get Jackie Earle Haley back. I don't know. Still, it's really damn good. I wish I could say more about this season other than it only ends up being, it's really, really good. It being such a high quality makes me very excited and hopeful for where the show actually decides to take its plot and characters. It might be a more standard season of The Tick, but now that it's all over, it's shown that it can ride the line of being a little bit more what people really recognize without giving up what makes it an individual and unique take on the franchise. I can't wait for the next season. 8 out of 10, 2 thumbs up. Alright, so let's head on to listener questions. We only have one this week from El Bueno on Twitter, and their question is, do you feel like DC should pick more dense issues of multiversity to work with like they did with Masterman, or do things like Earth 4 and Earth U simply do not work on anything other than one-shots? And, well, that's a great question. Honestly, given how Freedom Fighters turned out to be complete trash, I would rather no one take on multiversity issues or plots, no matter how dense or simple they were. But if I were a bit more optimistic, I would say OGNs. OGNs all the way. I feel like that would be enough room to really tell the story of the issues without limiting or restricting them. It's also what Multiversity 2, which was announced a few years ago, was meant to be. OGNs about some of the characters, if not the issues anyway. And I feel like that format would also help the less dense issues and plots not have to be inflated or dragged out to be as long as it needed to be either, if anyone really wanted to tell their story about those premises. So yeah, I feel like that would be a pretty good avenue to really work with multiversity. And I hope that answered your question satisfactorily, El Bueno. I really do. thank you so much for sending in a question to begin with. I am so grateful, and it's a great one, and it's really fun to answer these questions. So really sending you my thanks here. And I want to send my thanks and my gratefulness to anyone out there who's ever sent in their own questions or feedback or comments into the show. It means so much to me. I'm so humbled. It is honestly so fantastic. So thank you all so much. And if anyone out there has their own questions or topics or comments they want to hear discussed on the show, you can always find me on Twitter at THE_SNICKMAN. And I want to give a shout out to the cover artist for the show at DOTEMCEE. Check them out. Their work is great. They really deserve some traffic. Anyway, that's it for this week. I hope to see you again next time, and have a great week.